G'day and thanks for joining me back on the channel. Coming up on Zwift, there's a very exciting stage race known as the Horta Route. Now, if you're not familiar with it, it's a 3-day stage race covering some of the biggest, toughest climbs on the Watopian circuit. Now, the aim of the race is to simulate the tough nature of riding in a stage race, just like what the pros do on the tour. The event starts on April the 3rd and concludes on the third day on April the 5th. Now I'll be trying to finish all 3 stages, and most likely I'll be racing at the 8 p.m. Australian time zone. So if you'd like to follow along or join me in the race, it'd be great to see you out there. I'll give you a ride on. I'll include some links below so you can check out the different stages and routes that will be covered. But on day 1, it will be the Three Sisters, which features 3 big climbs, one of which is the Epic KOM up to the radio tower. On day 2, we'll be riding up the infamous Alpe d'Huez, which is modelled on the famous Alpe d'Huez on the French Alps. And finally, on day 3, it will be the Pretzel. So that's a bit of a classic Zwift route, originally one of the toughest routes, and again, there's a hell of a lot of climbing there as well. It should be a great event, and it should be a lot of fun. Now, if you are thinking of participating, I thought I'd put together a quick video providing you with 3 quick tips on how you can survive the event. Now, if you don't know your FTP, or functional threshold power, that's a little bit like going to the shops and not knowing how much money you have to spend. So you really want to know what your FTP is, and importantly, what your zones are. I'll put up on the screen the basic zones so you can work that out yourself based on your own FTP. Now, if you don't have a proper FTP, which you can establish through either a step test or the 20-minute test, now is not the time to be undertaking that test. It's a pretty grueling test in itself. But just maybe based on your previous riding history, have a good idea of what your FTP is and what your zones are. Now, there'll be a lot of riders out there. There'll probably be well over 100 riders, 200 riders on the event day. Now, stick to your plan, have a plan, and don't lose your head at the start of the stage. Now, we talked earlier about our FTP and our zones. I highly recommend you stick to a plan and keep a nice smooth tempo at either zone 2 or zone 3. So try not to get caught in the moment at the start, trying to hang on to riders that are riding at a much faster pace than you. Stick to your zones and pace yourself. It's going to be a long, tough race over 3 days, so you want to avoid going into the red. We all know that Zwift calculates your speed based on your watts. Well, based on your watts, how much you weigh, and a few of the other variables in the game, such as equipment and drafting and so forth. But it's predominantly your watts and your watts per kilo that dictate your speed. But as we all know, the quickest way from point A to point B is to maintain the highest average speed. Now, the way to do that in Zwift is to keep a nice, steady, smooth wattage. In general, you want to be nice and smooth, just like out in the real world when you're climbing or riding. You want to be smooth on the pedals, smooth on the power, and that will then result in the fastest average speed. Now, a way of doing that is as we mentioned earlier, you'll have your zones based on your FTP. So be aware of your surroundings. Just understand what the gradient is that you're riding on and what is the gradient that is coming up. You want to alternate between your zone 2 and zone 3 smoothly. Now, don't start clunking the gears. You want to be smooth on the gears. Be nice and steady. One easy way of managing your tempo or your speed is to balance the gradient with your gears. So as the gradient pitches up, it's probably a time that you might need to push on the pedals a little bit. Similarly, if you're hurting a bit, it's probably, and the gradient has dropped down to maybe 2 or 3%, it's probably a good time to drop back into an easier gear, spin a nice high cadence, and try and recover. Another good way of being smooth and steady is you might like to use your Garmin. Now you can use your Garmin just like out in the real world, and you can use that to track your lap power or your average power. So you might, for example, want to hold zone 2 for 5 minutes. So you can just very easily use the lap function on your Garmin and hold that tempo, hold that zone. Also, make sure you're not only aware of the gradient that you're riding on, but look forward and look ahead to see what is coming. To be able to maintain that momentum, sometimes it's important to look ahead, and if there's a steep little pinch, it's a good time to drop it into a bigger gear, get out of the saddle, and push your bike up over the hill and maintain your momentum. Similarly, once you're over the top, sit back down, click back a couple of gears, and spin a nice easy tempo to recover your legs. As mentioned, I'll include some links below to the route overview so you can have a look at the courses we'll be covering in the Horta route. But each of these stages, you'll be looking at easily a 1 or 2 hour effort, so nutrition is going to be very important. Now, I highly recommend you have at least 1 or 2 bidons of water, and probably you'd want to have at least one of those with some sort of an energy drink as well. Now, you probably also want to look at including an energy bar, or personally, I'll be taking along some of the delicious MCS energy bars. You might want to check out the recipe on the channel for those as well. But you want to be looking at consuming about 50 grams of carbohydrate per hour. So if you mix that with a good energy bar and an energy drink, that should see you through the 1 or 2 hour effort for the ride. One last tip, have fun. It's not a race, just enjoy the ride, enjoy the challenge. It's going to be a long endurance ride, so you've got to be in it for the long haul, and the aim is to repeat the effort for 3 days in a row, so it's not going to be an easy task. So enjoy the ride, don't go too hard, and as I said, I'll be out there 8 p.m. Australian time every night, so hopefully I'll see you out there as well, and enjoy the event. See you later.